Because you've always been there.
You're watching the Spice Girls on Shabba-dabba!
We have travelled the world.
Yeah, and I'm not from London, you know.
And I'm not from Leeds, you know.
Make it last forever. Friendship never ends. Don't you know it's going too fast? Racing so hard, you know.
Life is to be able to stand there, to have an influence on people, to be a positive role model, to be able to get out what I want to get out.
And you know, now we're closer than friends. I think, you know, we're totally honest and upfront with each other.
Home soon. 10 weeks, 35 shows.
That's ages away.
No, it's not. Look, see this? This is America, right? We've done this bit. We've got to do that bit. And we've really got all that to do.
In a way, I'm very, very glad that I've been through some of the things I have, such as being homeless, you know, being poor, being deprived, you know, of a lot of things. Nothing was ever handed to me on a plate, ever.
Girl power, as it comes out, that's what we were about. It was more than just this singing and dancing thing. It was a philosophy and what we wanted to do, where we were coming from. We were strong and we wanted to make it.
Because he's the one who said, can you show a bit of cleavage and midriff? And we
Girl power.
no, girl power.
There's no complication, there's no explanation, it's just a groove.
I couldn't stay. I had no choice. Absolutely no choice.
Gonna be there for you. You'll always be someone's baby.
Is that I'm sorry. I'm sorry I left. I was just being a brat. And I want to say that it's just so good to be back with the girls that I love and with you lot. I miss you. We just miss you.
The originators of girl power, and there's been plenty of that in the Great Britain team and every nation in the world.
Absolutely brilliant.
So here's the story from A to Z. I can't keep this up, so I'm just gonna stop talking. I'll just talk now, okay? I won't put you through that. Hi, hello, welcome back. You are here on a Tuesday. Hope you enjoyed that montage. I definitely would have enjoyed making it because I've been watching so much content about Spice Girls. It's ridiculous. So obviously we are talking about the Spice Girls today, and I've made up this phrase, bubblegum feminism, but I think that as we go through this video you'll understand what I mean. 5 commoners got created into a band that sparked the idea of feminism in so many people's minds, myself included. And I really want to talk about it and whether it was effective or not, the issues around it, how it came up against backfire, and trying to actually create feminism in the 90s in a way that everyone would embrace and the difficulties of that. There's a lot to unpack here, so obviously you can tell from the length of this video. Get your cup of tea, get a snack or something. Whether it's Walker's crisps, especially, maybe don't eat the ones if they're branded by the Spice Girls though, okay? Those are probably definitely gone off by now. Like, the thing is that the Spice Girls got hated on by men, by women, by music connoisseurs, by feminists, basically by anybody, and it comes down to multiple factors as to why that even happened. People would say that they didn't write their own songs, that they were bad examples for girls, but the thing is, they did actually write most of their own songs, and they were actually pretty good role models, especially in my books. I have a strong bias here, as you might well know. They embraced and celebrated each other's differences. There was never really competition between them, other than in terms of like wanting to make sure that they were all getting enough airtime, and they did try and make sure that that happened. It was more around the media trying to pit them against each other, honestly. They were loud, they were brash, they were open, they treated everyone the same. They didn't even care if you were royalty, they're gonna pinch you on the bum anyway, which could be considered to be sexual harassment, honestly. It's nuanced. There's a lot of issues and we're going to be talking about them all. The thing is that the Spice Girls definitely did tackle this whole notion of the shrill, fat, ugly feminist, and which was a false image as well. And they really did push third wave feminism more into the mainstream. They really wanted to express themselves, have fun, and they took everybody along for the ride, whether you wanted to be on the ride or not. But how effective can this easily digestible bubblegum feminism actually be? So without any further ado, let's dive in. I'm creating this 90s party look because I kind of had to. I will be doing another video next week on each of them as individuals, their relationships to each other and all of that, so don't forget to subscribe if you're not already. Everything I'm using on my face is cruelty-free vegan, not my parent companies that test on animals, and there's brief mention of ED here, but we're not diving into it too deeply in this one. But there are mentions of it as well as fat phobia, but we're not diving into it too deeply in this one. But in the next one we will be a bit more. Just as a heads up, this is a bit more feminist focus, okay? Alright, well let's get right on into it, shall we?
And we started to enter this world of the music industry really quickly. We were being told that girl bands don't sell. You know, it's all about boy bands. And we were like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And we just felt quite quickly we had a point to prove. You know, we had a little bit of a mission we needed to get upon. And that's when we started screaming about girl power. And it's, you know what, we feel like in the 90s, it was like feminism, but we made it more palatable for younger people to understand.
Look, if you hear Pixie crunching around on her crunchies, I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to be mean to my cat just because I'm filming. Is it worthy feminism if it's bubblegum scented?
It's pink.
Oh, and it's scented. I think it gives it a little something extra, don't you think?
This really is the bigger topic, right? Because even just looking at the Wikipedia page of feminism, the different types of feminism are many, varied, and wildly different. And some definitely have opposing ideas. If you want a very easy example of an opposing idea, J.K. Rowling considers herself to be a feminist, and I consider myself to be a feminist. However, when it comes to J.K. Rowling, she's what is known as being a TERF. On this channel, we are intersectional, is the best way to put it. And there's a lot of deliberation whether we're actually in a fourth wave of feminism right now. But basically, feminism in itself, because it is in so many different branches, and I am not a qualified scholar with this because honestly, you can go really, really far down deep into the different types of feminism and what they've meant and the composing ideologies. So I'm using the broadest strokes with the wave analysis with this, even though there are definitely people that do not like it being called waves. It's a lot, basically. And of course, I am but an average normal person. So as far as I'm concerned, like, feel free to correct me if I get something wrong. You don't have to yell at me about it, but I'm always happy to be corrected. We should all make getting corrected normalized. Seriously, it's not that bad a thing. Speaking of feminism as well, I will be making a video on Jane Fonda in the future as part of my Tragic Icon series. Even though she's not that tragic, a lot of things that happened were tragic. Anyway, I'll tell you more about it when I actually cover her in my series because I really, really want to talk about her and her impact on feminism. But the thing is, at the time, there were definitely some feminists who had huge issues with the Spice Girls. Some of the main concerns with them was the fact that they seemed to be catering to men with the way that they dressed and the fact that they wore makeup, because this was a bit of a criticism with the third wave of feminism, which was started by riot girl groups. And of course this, because they said girl power and there was apparently no deeper meaning to it other than female friendship and building each other up. And also because they were feminine in their own ways, and because they were watering down the very serious issues of feminism to be like this sweet, palatable, sort of bubblegum scented commercial package. And so people had a lot of problems with that when it comes to different branches of feminism at the time. Now, if you are watching this, you are more than likely a fellow Spice Girls fan. I have a strong bias to them. I think like years ago I even did like a Baby Spice like tutorial, so like I'm definitely a big Spice Girls fan. They had a huge impact on my childhood, and I think that will be the same case for most millennials, honestly. And there will be some of you that are watching this that weren't even alive whilst they were around. I was really the prime market because in 1996 when Wannabe came out, I was 6 years old. So I caught the girl power bug big time. Like, we didn't really have much disposable income when I was a kid. I remember playing the Spice Girls cassette tape because I am that old. And then later on I had their CD, and I also had a sticker book, and I had like a calendar because I remember Posh's eyes follow me around the room, you know, like when some pictures do that. But I didn't really have very much stuff, and I never went to a concert. Like, if you don't have the means, you can't get to do that sort of stuff. But that's totally okay because, hey, you know what we've got these days? YouTube. And you know what YouTube has? Countless interviews with them, countless shows, like all sorts of stuff that you can watch all about the Spice Girls. And there's one channel in particular I want to call out in case you are a big Spice Girls fan. Crystal Eye 90210. Their channel's about the same size as mine, and if you're a big Spice Girls fan, you will love the work that they do. They do fan edits basically of like interviews across all of the years, and they've done amazing edits. So I just want to shout that out. I don't even know them, but I want to shout out the channel. We had the Spice Girls singing about female empowerment, holding power in relationships, sexual empowerment, definitely against objectification and owning their sexuality in their own way. In every interview, they just took over. They were running around the place, leading the charge in platforms with heavily made up faces, bold and brash opinions, and building each other up and calling for women's rights in the most bubblegum candy scented way you could.
We've got a really good philosophy with girl power. It's all about that.
That's the most enjoyable bit as well, is going in, writing music. We put messages in our music for the young. Like, we've done a lot of songs, and we've put safe sex messages into them and girl power messages into them, not to let any man dominate your life.
Distinct from the other. So whilst they built each other up, it was like they were definitely individuals at the same time, and that was actually celebrated. It wasn't like this one's better than that one because like they fit more feminine stereotypes, or Sporty Spice wasn't more feminist because she was a tomboy, or anything like that. Like, they themselves built each other up, and they really did celebrate the differences. It was the public that were pointing at each one, tearing each one apart, saying which one was better and which one wasn't, you know, especially when it comes to the singing, when it comes to writing, when it comes to anything. I mean, that definitely rubbed off on me because I thought that Posh was the boring one, but her wit is just very dry and cutting. They spoke out about being objectified and the costumes that people were trying to make them wear. Like, they had heavy involvement with what they wore, with what they sang. Like, they did actually write a lot of their own lyrics, and they were very involved in a lot of their projects, despite what certain people like Simon Fuller might want to make people believe. Like, one of the most famous examples of them speaking out against objectification.
Why did you ask that?
What?
To have a cleavage shown and a midriff shown.
It's every man's fantasy.
Well, you can fuck off and bollocks.
Chauvinistic pig, that's such an easy cop-out, that really is.
It's not sunny. It's not sunny, stop trying to look cool.
No, it's not sunny.
Anybody want some shade?
You know, buy
Shade. Buy for a quid.
And yes, I will be talking about objectification in a video later on in the year. The thing is, as you know, my list is very long of things I want to talk about, and that one will take a while to do. So you had these 5 ambitious, loud, hard-working girls kind of crash onto the scene and sort of take over the world very quickly, mind you. Even though they'd been formed like years prior, like as soon as they did crash onto the scene with Wannabe, it was everywhere. You could not escape Spice Fever. But the thing is, similarly to all of the protests against them, isn't it the most feminist thing to actually allow women to act in the way that they want and do the things that they want to do without casting extreme, disgusting judgment on them? I find it really ironic in the fact that we've got these women that were controlling their sexuality and actually doing what they wanted to do being torn down. It's like, so you've got these girls that were breaking the mold, but then you want them to actually conform, but you are against conformity. That's the thing that kind of baffles my mind a bit, because you had men taking issue with them, unless they wanted to sleep with them, of course. You had women taking issue with them because they thought they were catering to men, and it's like they were just kind of doing what they wanted to in the 90s feminist sort of way. And the thing is, because they were these commoners, as Vivienne Westwood said, like, a lot of people were trying to actively pick them apart and shame them.
It's disgusting behaviour.
Because they were kind of expected to know everything about everything, and it's like, I don't know everything about feminism, and I've got a keen interest in it, and I haven't been trying to make myself into a pop star. We put so much pressure on these girls, and still today with celebrities, there is a lot of pressure to know everything about everything, and it's like no one can know all of that. If you know anything about the way that they were living, they spent their time working, rehearsing, trying to come up with like songs, and trying to actually get their names out there to become pop stars, and it's, you can't really go catering to watch the 6 o'clock news and stuff. Back then you had to actually read an awful lot. Like, information wasn't as easily accessible back then, and don't forget the manipulation of the press as well, my gosh. But I don't really think that people were as political back then when they were young, because political discussions were kind of seen to be like these boring things for old people, which still is a stigma that there is today, and I kind of think that that was actively done to be able to take power away from the youth back then too. And so I I'm not surprised that they didn't really have much interest in politics, like in the history of politics, because it wasn't really seen to be something that would benefit them hugely. And I've also said many times before, I've got a lot of problems with people that try and gatekeep with academia, and I don't like that, because everyone should be respected and valued regardless of if they've gone through an academic process or not. Granted, you do need to listen to experts on certain things like science and whatever, but lived experience still counts, okay? And I also think that a lot of this comes down to devaluing femininity and sexism, because there were kids, teenagers and adults that absolutely adored them in droves. They were, and probably still are, the most popular female girl group that actually existed. There's no one way a feminist should look, act, talk, or what job they should hold. I mean, obviously barring like trafficking and stuff. I mean, some people still, even to this day, try and make the argument about Charlie XCX work, which I will be talking about in my objectification video, and plus Khadijah is doing this whole series on it, I believe, so you're already subscribed to them. But yeah, I go check out their channel for that stuff as well. But personally, for me, we're all exploiting ourselves to be able to get by, okay? I kind of consider it to be a very derogatory and terrible thing when people are slut shaming in this way, when people are literally using like assets that they can make more money off to work possibly less hours in some cases. What a lot of the criticism of the Spice Girls came down to was this uncomfortableness with female sexuality, in the same way that we have that about Charlie XCX work. This uncomfortableness stems from patriarchal values and beliefs, and that of course does get internalized by women in this form of internalized misogyny, which I definitely have been trying to unlearn over many years.
There are more than 120 to collect, and they show the girls in various states of undress. Something that parents at the school believe to be unsuitable for children as young as 5.
You knew which picture editor of the day had which particular fantasy of either Ginger Spice, Posh Spice, or what. That would be the first picture you'd send, because you had to grab their attention. There was nobody sitting there going, oh, I think they're showing a little bit too much cleavage there. Oh, there's a little bit too much bum cheek. It's like, no, that's what we're, you know, and I think it was that sort of slight voyeurism that was, at the time, you know, sold.
However, because third wave feminism brought back femininity and reclaimed it and used it in a way where people were doing it because they enjoyed it as opposed to it being expected of them, there was this definite clash that was happening with some second wave feminists. Like, some particular people from second wave feminism believed in complete desexing of women, and so seeing these Spice Girls who were overtly sexual in ways that they wanted to be was definitely creating this reaction of slut shaming them and trying to disempower them as women, which I don't think is helpful.
Well, as the old saying goes, women who can do, women who can't become feminists. Or Spice Girls.
Does anyone have a good word to say about the Spice Girls?
No, I'm sorry, but there was nothing good about the Spice Girls. I'm sorry. Nothing.
But because the Spice Girls were all so very different as individuals, there was no one particular way to be a Spice Girl. And all you really had to do was fiercely be yourself and empower others. The gatekeeping wasn't there. Being a Spice Girl was for everyone. And I also remember that they changed their lyrics for "to become one" to actually be gender inclusive as well, which, fantastic, love it.
Once again, if we endeavor, love will bring us back together.
Of course, we do have to take into account that we're on about 5 able-bodied, pretty and fairly talented women. So of course they would have particular advantages, as well as like the location that they were at, but they definitely didn't all have like very easy lives. But they spread messages of everybody being able to be treated equally. But people like Jerry got slut-shamed for being a glamour model when she was at the age of 18. And when those pictures resurfaced, like, that really did deeply affect them because of this awful ingrained sexism and slut-shaming that definitely existed in the 90s, that people were trying to break down. People like the Spice Girls were trying to break down.
We're really proud that there are so many girl groups out there. Not that time. Yeah, they're not trying to be Spice Girls, they're individuals and they should be treated like that. And there is no competition, there is just respect and admiration and camaraderie. It's only the press that choose to build that. It's you that create that to make a story.
I think if you actually saw behind the scenes, it's completely different.
We support each other.
Jerry was a model for many sexy magazines. How did you react when you saw the picture? I wasn't really surprised because, you know, when we first got together, I knew eventually they would come out. So it's just one of those things. You know, something I did, it's my past, you know. you know, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just one of those things. Like, some people used to work in a fish and chip shop. I used to be a nude model. Big deal.
Topless pictures of me had come out. Hideous. It was not good then.
We were selling records to children and teenagers and adults, but children were the main ones buying our records at one time. And I think we were all a bit concerned that that might affect our fan base. So I think it probably did cause a little bit of friction.
But that definitely affected them. And Jerry in particular. I mean, hell, we've still got a long way to go today, right? When we've got people on podcasts saying that a girl should not be able to have an Instagram account if she's got a boyfriend, because the only reason to have an Instagram is to get men. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what? The world doesn't revolve around you, Steve.
Next phase, next grade, next way. Too much of something is bad enough.
The only thing bigger than the Spice Girls this year are the headlines that we wake up to every morning, which usually feature the girls.
Welcome to a brand new station. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You earn millions and millions with this CD. Doesn't
Yeah.
that bother you?
No. We earn millions. Why does that get on my nerves? God damn it, I've earned millions. I don't want to earn that much, honestly.
Sellout. The paradox of girl power and consumerism. Capitalism and feminism, in my opinion, don't really mix. It's like oil and water, which yes is a fantastic Incubus song you should listen to. It's one of their best in my opinion. In order to succeed in capitalism, you have to bank on the exploitation of others. And sadly, when it comes to the Spice Girls merchandise that they had their names and images slapped all across, they weren't exactly what we'd call ethically made. And surprisingly, the most sustainable one of them was probably Jerry actually back in the day, because she would be shopping secondhand to get the originals of things.
Sort of like the old second-hand freaky version of Victoria, really. You know, so it's really mad. You know, I love second-hand markets and getting originals like Mary Quant and things like that.
When it comes to all of the deals that the Spice Girls had, they had deals with Pepsi and Walker's Crisps. They are crisps, they're not chips, because this is based in the UK and they're called crisps. Impulse spray, and oh my god, you were the coolest person in school if you had this. I think I was too young at the time, but wow. Chup Chups lollipops, the Spice World video game, Polaroid. Baby. Cadbury, dolls, radios. Even Asda actually signed a deal with them. You may remember this at Christmas time if I show this imagery to you. I'm sure that at least a couple of you remember this. I never saw it myself, but wow, what the hell. Along with books, clothing, clocks, literally everything possible that their faces could be attached to, it was. I actually attribute a lot of this to Simon Fuller because he really changed the band into a brand.
What separated him completely from what came before is that he saw just releasing a record isn't enough. It was going to be music and brands. He was going to put the two things together.
And there was this big focus on making them as recognisable and popular as possible. And in June of 1997, granted, Wannabe came out in about June of 1996. After just 1 year, they had 100 trademarks. 1 year, 100, that's so much. And of course, given that short tenure, like, it's no wonder that there was this overkill and this knee-jerk reaction against them as well. I mean, even this concert in Istanbul, that was sponsored by Pepsi. And in 1998, when they fired Fuller, they actually said no to a lot of different deals as well. And honestly, I think that that was a really good move on their part. Simon Fuller was purposefully working them to the ground, and I have a lot of issues with him as a person. And you know, the second album that they wrote, they were still writing that whilst they were actually filming the movie Spice World, the camp gloriousness movie that is, which I tried to watch on YouTube recently because I remember watching it a couple of years ago on YouTube for free. It's gone now, because apparently, like, a lot of people have found, like, popularity with them again, which sort of sucks. And because I've been watching all of these interviews with them, like, it's quite sad to actually hear them talk about it, because I believe it was Emma that was actually saying that most of it was just this blur. All that she could remember was all the costume changes, because they were so overworked by Simon at this point. Like, they had barely had a single day off. And can you imagine like the problems with going on flight to flight to flight, touring around the world, doing press conferences all the time, like even during filming this, because I watched the behind the scenes documentary. When they were having their downtime, they had press conferences and they had meet and greets with fans. They had stuff happening all the time, along with actually recording Spice World, the album, as well as filming a movie at the same time. How that would not destroy anybody is beyond me. So when it comes to people trying to say that they weren't working hard or anything, that is complete and total rubbish, because they worked their butts off.
Victoria said, yeah, we've got 4 days. And I thought, come on, chop, hurry it up.
Obviously, it's been some long days.
They've been very professional. We've kept absolutely to
film. We have done loads of things at the same time. There's always people coming down, you know, whether it's magazines, competition winners, whether it's, you know, promotion.
You know, if they're not doing this, they're having to do publicity or commercials or recording their next album.
And then got slammed all the time by the tabloids and in interviews. And also they were raising the issues that back when they were really popular, people were actually buying CDs and cassettes and whatever. But now we don't really have that as much, and the terrible issues with streaming services when the artists themselves are barely getting any money from it. I mean, TLC is a fantastic example of this, and I also believe NSYNC is as well. I believe that Kendall Ray's got a great video all about their management. It's as if they purposefully prey on people, isn't it?
Spice Girls' name was basically, it came about because we wrote a song called Sugar and Spice, and we felt that, you know, that sort of planted the initial seed. But it's like when a baby's born, you know, when a name springs to mind and it suddenly just fits. It just fitted so well. It fitted so well. We were in aerobics class, weren't we?
Yeah. Oh, it's because we were very, you know, like...
And we wrote a song.
We're just very individual, very spicy, and we all like to get up and have a good old laugh, and it just fitted so well.
I don't think so. Should we have a holiday, babe? Should we have a holiday? Nah, let's keep working.
Jerry, she's far too posh to kiss the prince.
He tried, and I said, hang on a minute.
Ever wondered that you're at risk of being like overexposed? You know, one of the people just going to go, guys, them again.
That's not up to us though, is it?
Can't say that to Jerry now.
Hiya, my favourite video is the Fugees' Ready or Not.
Yeah, I think what's most important is we're not trying to be anything else apart from ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We're not making ourselves up there or down there, we're just us. That's it, what you see is what you get with the Spice Girls, and I think people, you know, it's a bit refreshing to see some real solid dance. So I'm sorry, I've been told to shut up. Go on, Vicky.
Dave, Liam, come and have a go if you think you're hard enough.
It's funny because all these people that we're dealing with are grown men and grown women, and you will have to sit there and go, right, I want this, this and this, and I don't agree with what you're doing that, and it's like they sit there and take it.
You know, he's 50 and he's standing there having to be told off by a 22-year-old going,
You're not doing your job properly.
Friendship first. Now, if you are a fan, you'll know this, but the Spice Girls actually wrote most of the lyrics on their songs. Sure, they did work with other writers, but it was heavily involving them all the time. Same as costumes that they wore, same as choreography that they did. Like, they were actually incredibly heavily involved with a lot that they did. And they made sure to have an equal 5-way split to ensure that everybody got credit on songwriting. And they say that communism fails. Now, even when they lived together with the original 5th member, like, they all came to their own agreements, because she wanted to go off to university, all power to you if that's the path that you wanted to take. And then Emma got suggested, they met her at the train station, and it was like this instant click that happened. Each of them had different dynamics with each other, and it's really interesting to actually watch that. But of course, most famously, you've got Mel B and Jerry, because they're both like very vocal, being quite strong-headed and strong-willed against each other, but that a lot of that comes down to the press as well. But they all sort of knew ways to like talk to each other, to calm each other down. They were there to comfort each other. It was very much about their friendship and working together on things. They were the ones that decided that their management wasn't good enough, and they came to these conclusions together. And I believe that they stole the master tapes after a showcase from their original management, and then they had already arranged meetings to happen. And then when they were sick and tired of Simon Fuller, they allegedly stole one of the, I believe, assistant's phones who had all of the contacts, so they could just scarper off without him, like, they were in it for themselves, for each other, and together. And I guess that's why it hurt that much more when Jerry did actually leave and like said goodbye in that weird way.
Me and Jerry actually were sitting opposite each other. We landed and Jerry got up and went, "I'm going to say bye, girls. Girls, I'm going to say bye now." And I thought, well, that's really weird. We never say goodbye to each other because we're not, you know, we go home for a couple of hours and we're back together.
You know, something you just think, that's a bit odd.
Did they know you were going then? Did you say,
I
I'm
think
leaving?
I can't. Yeah, I didn't say I was leaving. I just said I'm not coming. The next day I said I'm not coming back.
And that would obviously take you right off guard if effectively someone that felt like your sister like just up and left you. And this happened 2 days before Mel B's birthday. But at the time, as we'll be talking about in the next video, Jerry just was not in the right headspace to be able to actually handle being a Spice Girl anymore. And I think that if Jerry was able to be more honest with them about the things that she was dealing with, we know that she was dealing with ED, we know that she was dealing with a lot of issues because she got picked on so much by the press and the public.
So a Christmas pop quiz that says there's no one quite like Grandma, though Ginger Spice is catching up pretty quickly.
Is this Andy Gray or is it Ginger Spice without the makeup?
Are they as young as they say? That's what I want to know. I'll tell you this, right? If Jerry Spice is 24, then she's going to look f***ing rough when she's 30.
Coming along, it's really nice to see you all, but are we not missing somebody?
We are. Unfortunately, Jerry's not very well tonight, so get well soon, Jerry.
It got blamed on the whole her wanting to do this thing for breast cancer by herself, but that wasn't actually the thing. It's just all of it together all contributed to that. But of course none of us will really know all of the things that went down there, and it's up to them to share what they want with us. And they've all sort of had their own say in their own way, and that's all that we can really take from it, honestly. The main thing is that they're friends now, but part of me can't kind of get past the fact that because they were such a strong force together, if Simon Fuller hadn't pushed them as hard as he had, and if they actually had sustainable growth over time, I think that like they could have made such a huge difference, like even bigger than what they did. They could have stuck it out for way longer because they were so impactful in more ways than what I think a lot of people realise. I really think that they could have actually lasted well into the 2000s, honestly. And it's quite sad that that didn't actually come to fruition in the end. And of course, after that went down, everybody wanted to pick them apart to get them to throw Jerry under the bus all the time. Some of them fell prey to it, in particular Mel B and Victoria. But obviously, like, you can understand why you'd be really mad about, like, what happened, right? Like, I would be fuming after that. And Mel B and Jerry had a very special sort of relationship. And obviously, you'd be hurt after something like that went down. And you were still expected to form effectively, like, the next day and have to re-choreograph things and reassess, like, who's going to sing what song and who's going to sing what line. Everything had to get redone after that. Of course you'd be mad about it. But after that split happened, it's really ironic how people really wanted to tear these women apart that were all about girl power even more, because feminism was really not viewed as something that could work for a lot of mainstream people in the 90s.
I'm surrounded by them and Jerry's right above my head, and this little boy said to me, "You look like Mickey Mouse." He did. Why not?
I do not find that funny. I don't
All right.
find that
All
funny,
right.
Jack.
You
So
are?
I'm doing police patrol here. Go on.
She is quite scary, actually.
In their faces. You should get proper black people to do it. You shouldn't paint their faces. I don't think that's very good.
No, but that's tradition. That's culture. That's tradition.
Yeah, but you should get
one of the five is
proper.
Winnie Mandela. Hello, Winnie.
I think they should change it. I think you should change it. I think you should change it. You shouldn't have their faces painted.
No,
this is the 90s.
Yeah, but that's culture.
No,
You've
no,
got to
update
say-
your culture.
Thank you very much.
Oh, I know that chest. Is it Ginger Spice?
Hang on, I'll just check.
No, it's Sporty Spice.
Was? Ich kann auch ganz schlimm sein.
Eigentlich hat sie mir versprochen, dieses Hemd andersrum zu tragen, aber sie hat sich doch nicht dran gehalten. You wanted to wear it the other way around, right?
No, I didn't. Nein, das habe ich nicht versprochen.
So you is the best at footy, you know. So you get Posh. So does Sporty Spice go out with someone from Scunthorpe United?
That's horrible.
What do you mean?
That's
That's my friend, and she's lovely.
Boy power, that's what I want. Let's bring back boy power.
Cool. Want to hear the Spice Girls getting booed? Just call our Wanna Boo hotline below to hear the audience in Spain.
So many signs that you can see that indicate the sort of spice mania is beginning to go. Why go on flogging a dead horse?
Girl power. What? I'm just not sure what girl power meant.
Came from fear, I think. I think people are intimidated and fearful of a powerful group of young women.
The issues with trying to make feminism mainstream in the 90s world, it's gonna bite back. The Riot Girls bands were all an underground movement. However, Spice Girls were top of the pop culture famous. Not only were people calling them not feminists and saying that everything was just a marketing ploy, that they were just shallow, they would get slut-shamed, fat-shamed, belittled. There were very classist attitudes. There was definitely some racism with Mel B. I mean, even for the video of Wannabe, like, they wanted to scrape her hair back, and she adamantly refused because she just wanted to wear her natural hair, and good on her for doing that. She got so many fan mails for the fact that she made it okay for little girls to not feel like they had to scrape their hair back, which breaks my heart. And like I said before, intelligence shaming was common. None of these girls were actually formally educated. And of course, even using the word girls was seen as a bad thing. But again, third wave feminism, with especially the Riot Girls, like the way it's even spelt, it's spelt that way because they wanted to reclaim the word and show that girls were actually fierce and ferocious. You all know the famous clip asking Mel B about Margaret Thatcher, right?
Do you think Margaret Thatcher had girl power?
Yes, of course.
Do you think she effectively utilized girl power by funneling money to illegal paramilitary death squads in Northern Ireland?
I don't know about that.
Even if you don't know much about things, you see a woman in a position of power, your knee-jerk reaction is going to be to bolster them up and empower them, because it's all about solidarity, right? Because representation matters. But she didn't really know everything about Margaret Thatcher and what a terrible person she was that we know now, but that got used against her. So many of their interviews were full of people trying to trip them up like this. Basically, no matter what they could do, they were either too feminist or not feminist enough, and they definitely got compared to lad culture that was very big in the UK at the time, with these drunken loutish boys basically just getting blottoed every single night and behaving badly or whatever. And this ladette culture got characterized by the Spice Girls, the slut-shaming aspect of it, and then you had the this isn't feminism aspect of it, where everyone was writing articles attacking them, saying that they're just ladette culture, they are not good role models for our girls. Honestly, I think it's such a sexist view to just call them ladette culture, because the thing is that so much of this still pins on being able to actually reach those societal heights of expectations of being married and having kids by a certain age, and that sleeping around is a bad thing, regardless of whether they wanted to do it or not. It's like, well, maybe just let these people live the life that they want to lead. Oh my gosh, just because then you wouldn't be worthy of being able to settle down, because you would no longer be a good girl for a man to want to settle down with it. What's it matter if you want to stay single forever? Oh my god. So no matter what you did, you get people hating on you from all sides, and the Spice Girls definitely fell victim to that, despite them trying their hardest to do what they could.
It's one of the greatest moments in my life.
Hey!
You must realize, of course, that you are talking about an old bird.
Why do you think 5 girls have made such a fantastic impression on the charts? Why?
I don't know. I mean, I think that we think maybe it could be because there's so many boy bands and so many boy acts. I think girls like to see some other girls doing it for a change.
That the girls are identifying with us maybe, and it's, you know, and we're out there doing what we want to do, having fun.
You need to shave your
I know.
legs.
I know. This is stroking. She's stroking them. We are got hairy legs. This is where we show how international we are. Jerry has got hairy legs. And hairy armpits.
No, just hairy legs.
Showing us.
What is
I
that?
don't mind. I'm not perfect.
Keeps on telling me that she keeps having loads of sexy dreams about me. And
Oh,
I also think she
bisexual.
fancies me, right? So I don't know what to do.
Well, do you want to have a bit of a dabble in that area?
Nah, I've got my boyfriend.
Well, then tell her. Just say, look, you know, stop it.
It could be quite harmless as well. I mean, lots of people have fantasies about the same sex. Do you know what I mean? I've had... Everyone
have any of you
Have you like toasted your crumpet on both sides?
Can I just say, Joey did actually tell me the other day that she fancied me, and I went, oh, thanks.
Yeah, I'd say if I was a bloke, I'd find, you know, Victoria very fanciful. Do you know what I mean?
Come on then,
That's
bird.
the highest compliment you could ever get.
Spice Girls back then, we were so ramshackle. You know, it's like, literally, Jerry used to make her own clothes.
Yeah.
And I think part of the beauty of the band was we were a bit crap.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Were the Spice Girls too ahead of their time? They may be scoffing as I say this, especially since like they peddled consumerism like it was going out of fashion, which it should have been. But in a weird way, the statements that they made in their bubblegum pop, very approachable sort of way was actually more revolutionary than a lot of the things that came out during the time in pop music in particular, and also from what we were actually seeing from movies and from role models around us that people actually wanted to be like, that little girls would want to be like. You'd want to be like the Spice Girls, obviously. They wouldn't have made as much money if people didn't want to be like them, right? Want to be. Get it now? Like the Spice Girls were singing about using condoms, about saying no in relationships, about walking away from relationships, about putting friendship first in relationships. Whilst people may assume that it's all related to boys and it's about being boy crazy, we also need to recognize this was 90s palatability, and then this was also making me think about that trilogy that I did on... Trilogy sounds like I made a movie series. I mean, it's long enough to be about the 2000s culture, and we kind of regressed away from girl power. We took the sexuality aspects that they brought forward and to the 2000s, but we left the girl power behind. It was no longer really about building other girls up. It was about sexualizing yourself and catering to men, and without the girl power messaging, it was really more catering to men. They owned their sexuality in a way that was for themselves and empowered themselves. It wasn't necessarily around catering to the male gaze. They were all comfortable in their own skin in their own different way. But in the 2000s, it got warped into this is how you should be a woman in this particular way. They wanted to exploit the rejuvenated sexuality of women in the 2000s, whereas in the 90s, what the Spice Girls were doing was saying, I want to have fun on my own terms. So, yeah, I do almost think that it... Like I said before, it makes me really sad that they didn't keep going for longer, because I think that they could have really had a huge impact. And it does also make me sad that they performed at the Victoria's Secret fashion show, because they're not really great as a whole. If the Spice Girls actually came up today, would they be as impactful as they were back then? No, I mean, obviously, like, we expect so much more of our celebrities these days. You have to know about the climate crisis, you have to be politically active, you have to know about the exploitation of workers that happens. Even though it did make me sad seeing Billie Eilish work with Nike, given like the human rights issues. So even if they wouldn't work today, I think that they could have definitely had a much longer tenure. Like the appetite was definitely there for it. It wasn't just based on nostalgia. Now it definitely is. Like, they're all about 50 years old. I don't really think that they're actually going to be coming back onto the scene as a group all together and coming out with new music. I don't really think that that's going to happen, and we have to be okay with that. Luckily, like I said, we've got all of these videos, we've got all of these memories, we've got all of their music that they did make together to be able to actually look back on and see the things that they were actually breaking through barriers of. It does get looked down on a lot because they were acting up. They were so playful that a lot of it got swept under the rug, I feel. And I also feel like the fanatics and fanfare for the Spice Girls still today doesn't just come down to a stylistic choice. It comes down to this craving and want for this genuine female empowerment and connection amongst each other. We don't really have, like, I guess you could say that there was a little mix. We just don't really have many examples of this. In real life anyway. Like, you may get duos, but you'd never get 5 women really as empowering of each other in such a way and as brash. I don't really think that we'll be able to get such a repeat of them. And the way that they all connected to each other, which I will be diving into next week, it really does just go to show this craving for this female connection that is still lacking today. I mean, sure, we are so much better at building each other up these days, but there's not very many groups to be able to put that on. You know what I mean? I don't really know of many girl groups that are explicitly speaking out against stuff and owning their sexuality in their own way and building each other up, and they're all very different. I don't really know of any examples of that, but do correct me if I'm wrong. So anyway, thank you very much for sitting through this very long video. Do you actually think that the bubblegum kind of feminism that they did was actually useful? Because for me as a millennial, it really did shape me a lot. But you may think differently. Do you think that it was all just a marketing ploy and it was all just empty and vapid and a way to commercialize this sort of like goodwill? I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts. I mean, obviously for me, I'll be saying that view's kind of sexist, but everyone's different. Everyone has their own opinions here, and I'm here to hear yours. Obviously, you can probably tell that Baby Spice is my favourite. My style will probably never evolve from Baby Spice, with my love of florals and frilly dresses and like comfortable things. But in terms of personality, I would probably say I'm more like Mel C these days, honestly. I did also like Jerry when I was a kid, but my mum didn't let me like her because she was too slutty. Welcome to more of my internalized misogyny and issues around female sexuality that followed me my whole life. But we'll be talking about more of that next week. Do let me know. With your color coordinated heart, who was your favorite? I'd love to know. I don't want people to be pitting them against each other in the comments. Obviously, like, that's not very empowering. They all had strengths in different places, and it's worthwhile acknowledging that. But also, they all work together so well because they filled up the things that each other were lacking, and they built each other up. So I don't really want to go seeing this sort of like, this one was better, blah blah blah. No, we're not here for that. We're here for lifting all of them up, or your favorite one up, but not, you don't need to bash other women to build someone up, okay? Okay. Anyway, lovelies, thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye.
We don't see ourselves as stars or famous. We are just us, and we happen to be doing like a job, if you want to call it a lifestyle, that is like a 1 in a million dream. It's a chance, isn't it? And we're getting up there and we're doing it for all the girlies and for anybody out there who wants to, ow, sticking her nails in me, who wants to have fun with us.
Are you having fun?
Am I having fun? I'm having great fun.
She's
I'm really having fun. I'm really having fun.